All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Close. We are live on this Wednesday, back in the regular studio. Thank you, everybody, for being here. First red day. First red day of the year. Now, it's not exactly red in every sector. There are various stocks, various themes that are holding on pretty well. If you are in the lab of rockets, you are having a hell of a day. Rocket Lab right here touching $92, 91.89 right now, up 6%. I mean, this stock obviously wants to go to $100. Feels pretty obvious. And it looks like it's going to get there, 91.75. The rest of the market, quite frankly, has started to catch up back to a little bit of green. AMD was red for the day, came up to being green. S&P was down 1%. Now it's down 0.5%. Not as bad. Zeta fell to 21.50 or 21.65. Now it's back at 22. NVIDIA, which almost fell below 180, back at 182. Bitmine, good day with the crypto stocks. That one's up 4% on the day. BTC, are we at 97? We are indeed at 97. I mean, this one's feeling a lot more lively than it has over the past couple of weeks. Bitcoin right there, 97.6. Ethereum, I think at 3,400. Ethereum just below. We touched it for a second. We were just below 3,400. MicroStrategy, Coinbase, etc. Not Robinhood getting the benefit of this crypto bounce. Shopify still down 6%. Netflix down 2%. But BMNR and MicroStrategy getting some love right there as BMNR is up 4%. Everything else still pretty ugly of a day. But then again, it's also been a pretty strong couple weeks. Amcor, for example, was up 25% year to date yesterday. It's down 6%, giving back 6% of that 25%. Not that crazy. Amazon continues to be Amazon. I mean, it broke out to 247, back to 236. Now, it's not just Amazon. All the Max 7s have struggled throughout the day. Tesla down to 437. That's down 2%. Meta, I think the most surprising at 617. This thing was at 630 yesterday. I mean, $17 is not that much to separate this from going back below 600. I think 585 was the low back in November. So Meta seems to be a little bit of a falling knife right now. You got a lot of people buying it, but obviously there are sellers that are coming in and maybe waiting until earnings. JP Morgan down 1%. The banks are down, including Bank of America, even though they had good earnings. Not sure why. Taiwan Semi is going to have earnings at 2 a.m. Eastern later today or tomorrow morning. So they will start off big tech semiconductor earnings. ServiceNow down 3%. Datadog down 3%. SMH down 1%. Transmedics is flat on the day. Reddit's down 1%. ASTS, again, the space names have been good. That one is up. EOSE, energy name is up. Micron did get an upgrade today to 450 by Oppenheimer with margins potentially going higher. That's still down 1% of the day. HIMS is down 2%. It's a red day, but again, if you're in certain sectors, it's not as red. Palantir ended up going to 173 at one point, now at 177. So you are seeing a relatively decent rebound. Even Nebius fell to 97. Now it's at, or 99. Now it's back at 102 from 110 yesterday. So it's red. It's just not as ugly as it was earlier in the day. Grab got hit to 458. Now it's back at 463. Again, price and sentiment obviously are pretty bad on this one. I don't think anything fundamental has hurt it. The one headline that I did see on Grab, which probably if there was going to be a headline to contribute to why it's red today, this would be the headline. There might potentially be a commission cap in Indonesia on driver rides from 20% to 10%. And platforms would have to pay full insurance, accidents, and cover healthcare for the drivers. So, I mean, maybe that's the reason. Again, would that affect Grab? Yes, but that would affect a lot of other companies in the region. So I think it would be a net wash effect. But obviously the street could be interpreting that as bearish. And that could be a reason. I think there's a more broader reason around why this stock is getting hit around price and sentiment versus just this headline. But this is one of the headlines that could be creating some pain. Now, silver and gold, once again, continue to surge. Silver right there, 93.18, 7.85% on the day. As that one is up. Gold right there at 46,300. Obviously, silver has taken a life of its own. It was at $70 like 2 Sundays ago. Now it's at 93. Copper continues to surge higher as well. In Shanghai, an ounce of silver will run you about $108. In the United States, it's at 93. So there's a divergence across the entire world with these two asset or with the same asset class, but in 2 different geographies. And that's probably creating a little bit of an arbitrage as well, which is creating a bit more excitement and momentum. So again, today's a red day for you if you're heavily in like large cap tech. You know, if you've been buying Meta, it's a little bit of an ugly day. SoFi, a bit of an ugly day. Robinhood, even though it should be kind of benefiting, a bit of an ugly day. But there's plenty of sectors, which goes back to this thematic of it's a stock picker's market, right? If you picked crypto over the past couple of days, you're up. If you've obviously heavily put yourself into Rocket Lab, that's up 5% on the day. Now, Rocket Lab got an upgrade to 90, but also Cantor Fitzgerald in their upgrade said that this is the best SpaceX proxy. Now, all of us probably knew that already. It was kind of obvious, but when our institutional bank comes out and says, hey, this is like the best way to play SpaceX, then a lot of institutional investors listen, and then boom, you might have a surge in that stock. So that's up 5% along with ASTS as that continues to get momentum. Again, this whole idea of stock picking is really important to go into 2026. Is the high beta rally over? I don't necessarily think so. A lot of high beta names like an Ondas got hit today, but they got hit and now they're back. Ondas was down 7%. Now it's down 2%. VG, which is not really high beta, this was at like what, 820 today. Now it's at 783. All right, that's not too bad. It was at 650 last week. Kratos up 1.4%. Your Oklos of the world were at 110 yesterday. Today they're at 95, but they bounced from 91. So I'm not sure if this high beta momentum is necessarily over yet. I think we definitely got tested today for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about why some of those reasons coincided with the red today. Microsoft, yeah, completely getting hit. But I don't know if that necessarily means we've completely stopped the high beta momentum. Wow, Microsoft, 457. 3.4 trillion. Microsoft did hit, I think, close to 4 trillion last year. My goodness. Mike, let's go pick up the max. So Apple's down 1, Microsoft's down 3, Meta's down 3, Google, which is, shout out to Google, just being a champ, still holding 4 trillion, but that's flat. Amazon down 2, Nvidia down 2, and then Tesla down 2. Yeah, the start of the year outside of Google has not been good for the Max 7. SaaS is even worse. If you take a look at the left-hand side of my screen, Twilio, Intuit, Zscaler, CrowdStrike, Netflare, ServiceNow, Adobe, once again, down 2%, although this is not the low that Adobe was at during the day. Salesforce, Team, Atlassian, MongoDB, Datadog. I mean, all of them getting hit. We did not get the Supreme Court decision, which is partly the reason why I think we had a red day. So let's explore some of those core reasons before we get into the market close. We have about 7 minutes, and then we'll talk about all the different headlines we have. I think there's 5 major things for why we ended up going red. By the way, Bitcoin ETFs, as per BBG, seeing the highest inflows since October, which makes sense. We'll get the official inflows later today, but risk appetite might be coming back to Bitcoin. I think general breather after 2 hot weeks. That's probably why we're red. Trump getting very serious about Iran strikes and taking over Greenland. We have some updates on that. I also think that geopolitical volatility is likely why we are red. PPI, I think this is probably the biggest reason today, was way worse than expected, 3% versus 2.7%. And that's another reason why we were red. Credit card caps becoming more real. Have some updates on that. We'll talk about it. That's probably why we're red. And then no Supreme Court tariff decision. A lot of the market was expecting that. We ended up not getting it. Creates more general volatility. And I think those are 5 basic reasons for why we're having a little bit of a red day. Again, 2 hot weeks, you're likely to get some red, and today you're seeing it. So, maybe it's not the craziest thing in the world, but it is a bit more of a form of consolidation that may happen. We had Trump just now talk about milk. Shout out to my guy, Steve. With Robert F. Kennedy. We have some clips from that conference. They are now putting whole milk and 2% milk in every single school. I think that was the point of the conference. Here's what Trump had to say about Iran when asked about it.
We'll find out what that all means, but we've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that a good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset, including you will be very upset. But that's just gotten to me from information that the killing has stopped, that the executions have stopped. They're not going to have an execution, which a lot of people were talking about for the last couple of days. Today was going to be the day of execution. Been notified and pretty.
So a little bit of a switch up from what he said in the morning, where he was a bit more aggressive when talking about Iran. We're going to see over the coming days if that level of aggression continues to hold up. But this is something I think the markets are still concerned about when it comes to geopolitics. In terms of milk, the idea was to provide whole milk universally to It's called the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act into law. It will ensure that millions of school-age children have access to high-quality milk as we make America healthy again. So that was the press conference today. And yeah, that was the big news in regards to milk, but that's where he answers some of those questions. Bitcoin right there, 97.5, Ethereum 33.7, and then PayPal actually was green on the day, up 2%. Zeta fell, to 21.65, now back at 22.19. Again, a lot of these names are up 20% in 2 weeks. I mean, you're lucky if you get 20% in a year on an individual stock. So some of them taking a break, I don't think is crazy. You probably have a bunch of sellers coming in as well that are cashing in on some of the gains. Now, you're not seeing that on a name like Rocket Lab because their thematic is very strong. Their energy is very strong. The fact that Peter Beck is meeting with Pete Hegseth, that's very strong. But on other names that have run a lot, like an Ondas or a Zeta or an Oklo, I mean, yeah, them taking a break is not that crazy to me. Applied Digital as well. This one had a big move. That one's down 2% on the day. Kratos still up 1%. Oscar down 3.7. This was at 1750. Bank of America, ugly day, along with Citi. All the banks, Wells Fargo also down 4.5%. The credit card stuff looks like it's getting more real. We talked about it in the morning with Elizabeth Warren, Visa getting a little bit of a bounce, but she ended up saying that Trump called her today to talk about a collaboration on credit cards. She put out this note, and the fact that Trump called up Warren, you don't really see these two working together, likely means that maybe they don't get 10% by January 20th, but they're definitely going to try to make a change. And it's going to be up to the Republicans in the House to end up voting for this bill, and Trump's going to have to convince them. Mike Johnson ended up disagreeing yesterday with the idea of a credit card cap because that would obviously limit credit to consumers. So I don't know if this is going to play out, but you definitely have the financials acting like it might play out, and maybe that's why we're seeing some of the red across the board on a lot of these financials. It's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, look, I doubt it as well, but I mean, how many times do Trump and Warren work together to make stuff happen? So over the coming days, I think we're going to have to see if that plays out. Again, silver is above 93 for the first time ever. Pretty incredible that you're seeing this. Also, we had an executive order that was signed today during that milk conference around chip sales, which was actually, I guess, bullish for NVIDIA. But the idea was that Trump is now going to get 25% of these chip sales.
This one into semiconductors. It sets up a two-phase process. Under the first phase, semiconductors that are imported into the United States of America that are not then used domestically to build out our AI or computing architecture here will be subject to a 25% tariff. So, for example, semiconductors that were transshipped through the United States to other foreign countries would be subject to that 25% tariff. But those are two executive actions that the president reviewed shortly before you all came in.
So they're going to sell chips, basically, and it's a chip. It's not the highest level, but it's a very good level. And China wants them and other people want them, and we're going to be making 25% on the sale of those chips, basically. So we're allowing them to do it, but the United States is getting 25% of the chips in terms of the dollar value, and I think it's a very good deal.
So Trump right there confirming that we are allowing AMD, NVIDIA, et cetera, to sell the chips, but confirming that this executive order is going to be giving them 25% of the revenue from those chips, which is good for the US. And obviously it's at least good for the chip companies because they finally get to sell into China. Wednesday, January 14th. We got a lot to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here at 4 p.m. The stock market for the first red day of 2026 is now closed. We are done for the day. And again, it was red, but I mean, you did get a decent rebound in a lot of different areas, and would not surprise me if people ended up going green for the day as a variety of sectors rebounded. Now, Rivian getting a 7% down day off of a downgrade. That's not going to help. But if you're in copper, you're green. If you're in Rocket Lab, you are green. If you're in Tesla and Meta, you're not, right? So once again, stock pickers market, not really similar to 2025. 2025, if we had a green day for Rocket Lab up 6%, you'd probably have NVIDIA up 2%, Tesla up 3%. I mean, you would have everything moving. It's not happening to start 2026. And I think that's what's going to make this year obviously a bit more of a challenging year to navigate. Rocket Lab right there, 6%, highest close ever, 9180, $49 billion market cap. as that goes green on the day. S&P actually closed at 690 for as ugly as it was during the day. 690 close. Pretty damn nice to see us hold that level. Shopify was down 6%. Nebius was down 3%. Adobe was down 2%. NVIDIA ended up down 1.44%. I can't believe OSS ended up staying green for the day. Like, I really can't believe that. You would think on a day like this one gets nuked, but I guess there were plenty of people that took advantage of a dip, if there was even a dip. I mean, the lowest it got to today was 1070, which was still up a lot for the week. That one had volume of 5 million and ended up about 3.4%. AppLovin, this one got hit down about 7%. Nike was down about 1%. Broadcom continues to give away some of those gains. That's down 4%. SoFi ended down 2%. The Googs was flat. Apple was down about 0.5%. Robinhood was down 0.5%. Silver, again, ended up 8% on the day. The quantum stocks, I believe, were green. Yup, D-Wave, wow, 5%. IONQ up 3%. Rigetti up 5%. So pretty much all the quantum names held on to their momentum as well. Once again, small caps in thematic trends that are just not rooted in sort of that broader large cap thesis that we've had for the past 3 years. Those are the names that are winning. Uber right there was down about 1% on the day. MP Materials up 8.4%. CRML as well, Critical Metals, that was up 32% on the day. Poet, that was up 13%. A lot of the rare earth trade is coming back, and I think CRML in particular is tied to Greenland. At least that was one of the headlines I was reading this morning. That stock up 32%. USAR, yep, that's another one. That was up 9.6%. And you had the rare earth names get a lot more of excitement. VG, I don't know why that flipped red. I mean, it ended green on the day, but it definitely lost that 828 level. But the fact that it's almost at the high 8s or the low or the high 7s is not a horrible thing. Yeah, TMC, this one also got a bit of a pump. I think close to 750, right? 780. There you go. That's up 6.8%. How about Intel? Did that hold 47? Yeah, it's basically 49. Intel's amazing. Intel's the new NVIDIA. Exactly. Intel is the new NVIDIA. Micron right there. That was down 1.4%. IWM also went green. Yep. There you go. So again, in the morning, Supreme Court tariffs was the major headline, and that was defining what would happen throughout the rest of the day. But even without it, the bit of red that we saw it did not necessarily follow through throughout the rest of the day. And it seems like that's why you had some things really end green. Now let's get into some of the macro and AI headlines that we have to discuss. What do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow is Thursday. We do have TSMC earnings. That's going to be important in terms of macro stuff. We don't have anything else really interesting for the day. CPI and PPI was the most important thing. Yeah, tomorrow we're getting jobless claims, which I guess will matter for the labor market, but that's not too crazy. The Fed probabilities for a rate cut are now 5%. We'll get money market flows tomorrow. We'll see how much money is going into the sidelines. The equal weighted S&P is at an all-time high. That's correct. That's once again proving that small cap thesis to be rather correct. Verizon had a major outage today. It didn't affect me. I do have Verizon, but it seems like it affected a decent chunk of the country. And the Clarity thing is not coming. The Clarity Act is not coming out tomorrow, guys. It's delayed towards the end of the month. So I don't know if crypto's running based on the assumption that would be the case, but the Clarity Act is likely happening towards the end of the month. Verizon is still facing an ongoing network outage that has disrupted services for millions of users nationwide, leaving many with little to no cellular connectivity. Yeah, that didn't happen in New Jersey, at least, which is good. But it definitely happened across the entire world. BMNR, I think the final the final vote is today, and then tomorrow they're having the shareholder event. By the way, I heard potentially Vitalik and Sam Altman are going to be at their shareholder event in Vegas. Vitalik, the creator of Ethereum, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. So Sam Altman would be there for the Orbs connection. But if Vitalik shows up and they just talk a ton about ETH, would not be the worst thing in the world. Yeah, Tom said that, right? It's confirmed by Tom. All right, so we'll probably get some footage of that, and we'll see what ends up happening there. All right, headlines. OpenAI, Cerebras. This is actually a pretty big headline. They have signed a multi-billion-dollar computing partnership. Once again, OpenAI is committing to spend more money. In this case, $10 billion over 3 years, 750 megawatts And the idea is to achieve faster reply times on Cerebrus's technology versus NVIDIA.
Chip deal with Cerebrus, the AI giant, just putting out a blog post on the deal. They're agreeing as part of this to buy up to 750 megawatts of computing power. That's going to be over the next 3 years. OpenAI not putting a dollar amount behind this or commenting on the price, but I am, again, told it's roughly $10 billion by a source. Cerebrus, as some background here, designs specialized AI chips. This does add to OpenAI's current partnerships with NVIDIA. They're also working on a custom chip with Broadcom. They've got deals with AMD as well. It does help OpenAI eventually reduce some of its reliance on NVIDIA and add to the mix there. The move does highlight, though, this all-out race we've seen for compute and for infrastructure. ChatGPT has more than 900 million weekly users. Sam Altman, the CEO, has talked about access to fast, affordable computing and computing power is one of the biggest constraints on growth. So another big deal in the AI space, Mike.
Absolutely. Kate, I know you...
So, this is interesting because once again, it's kind of crazy to see how many deals that OpenAI is signing with money that, one argues they probably don't have, but they are signing these deals. And in this case, these deals are rooted in the idea of trying to kind of distance themselves a little bit from NVIDIA. I don't think that's why NVIDIA was red today, but one could argue that might be a reason why NVIDIA had a little bit more red than not based on this partnership. OpenAI is becoming old news quick. I can't deny that. They have not introduced anything interesting in 2026. Sam Altman hasn't even tweeted for the first 2 weeks of the year. Feels kind of weird. Claude just left and right is putting out new announcements, showing off new stuff. Microsoft headline today spent $500 million with Claude last year, which means that Microsoft even is finding value out of Anthropic. OpenAI is not doing that much, and I think the broader street is wondering exactly how do they justify that $800 billion valuation. VG right there, flat after hours. Quantum names up a little bit. Zeta up a little bit after hours. Palantir also pretty much flat. Got to 173 now at 178. BM&R still moving after hours, along with ETH. This ETH and Bitcoin run feels a bit more real. And maybe I'm just saying that because the prices are higher than before, but this is a $3,000 candle today. It feels like there's actually some legitimacy behind it. Did anyone buy crypto today? Or put in the chat if you bought or sold anything in regards to that space today. MicroStrategy has been getting a lot more attention again as well. Whenever Bitcoin runs, obviously people just rush into MSTR as the trade. This hit 190 today, now at 179. But it was at 150 for the majority of last week. Bought 10K in IBIT. IBIT calls. MSTR leaps. About 1,400 shares of Amcor under 48. Again, the most important thing to remember about these names is that they've run a lot over the past 2 weeks. So if you're buying these names after they've run, you've just got to be ready to know that if they take a breather, that's okay. When they're up 25%, they pull back 6%. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to pull back another 5 or 6%, especially if the market turns, right? If the market goes red, all these names are going to go down, especially given they've elevated so much. But I like a lot of these names at these prices. It's just, where does the macro take them? Bought NVIDIA. I love NVIDIA at these prices, but it's like, dude, if the S&P falls back to 680, NVIDIA is going to 170 pretty easily. And that's kind of the issue with buying some of these dips as well. Bought NVIDIA. Amcor could drop a bit more. Yup. Exxon, did that end up going green for the day? Exxon and Chevron. Yeah, 3% on Exxon and Chevron. Both of them getting some momentum. Tesla has kind of been a disaster all year as well. 439. This thing got to 498 towards the end of December. And then pretty much gave that back. Same thing with Amazon as well. Why is Fubo up 7% after hours? Is it? It was. It's up 5%. Do people still trade Fubo aggressively? Didn't the whole Disney lawsuit already happen? Fubo announces repurchase of 140 million of its 3.25% convertible senior notes. Okay, so they're paying down some debt. There you go. Well, I guess that's good. That is up 4%. What is the difference between leaps and calls? Leaps are just more far out. I think the technical definition of leaps are 12 to 18 months. A leap is a call, right? I mean, it could be a put as well, but most people refer to leaps as buying calls. It's just buying calls that are 1 to 2 years out versus like 1 to 2 weeks out. NVIDIA right there, up a little bit after hours. All right, so that was the OpenAI headline that we had today, which may have gotten the market a little scared about NVIDIA, but probably not the biggest thing in the world. Here's something that I thought was also really interesting. So for those that don't know about this company, it's called Built. Built is a credit card that you can use to pay your rent. Most places you can't use a credit card to pay your rent, and Built kind of allows you to build your credit while you're working with basically apartment complexes that partner with them. They are rolling out 3 new credit cards with an APR capped at 10% for 1 year. So you're actually seeing some credit card companies lean into the idea of a 10% rate. Now that's only for 1 year. After the 1 year, the purchase APR can run up to 34.7%, but they are leaning into the idea of at least a year of 10% intro rate and kind of coinciding with the administration. So, I mean, you might have some people that, or some credit card companies that actually say, hey, we're not going to piss off Trump. We're actually going to be on his side. It's just, the fact that they're only doing it for a year means that they're trying to get customers in, and then obviously they're going to charge a much higher APR because it's not sustainable. Otherwise, they would charge 10% forever, which is probably not the case. But that is one of the updates you had with Built. Another headline we had about, this is probably why Broadcom got hit today. I forgot to cover this. Broadcom OpenAI chip is likely delayed until 2027. Although this shouldn't be new news. Yeah, there was a headline here. Broadcom OpenAI chip delayed till 2020. This shouldn't be new news. Broadcom literally said, don't expect any revenue with OpenAI until 2027. So if that took Broadcom down, that's kind of dumb. I mean, they already fell on their earnings when they said that no OpenAI revenue will be happening in 2026. But that could have been a further reason why that one got hit by 4%. Yeah, it feels like an old notification. That is there. What do you think about the rare earth space? I just opened a position in MP Materials after Venezuelan news, MP breaking about above the 50-day moving day average over the last few days. I think the rare earth stocks are getting more attention based on the idea of what Trump has been talking about, in particular with these other countries that might be able to contribute more things. I mean, you even had this headline today. U.S. gets its first $500 million from Venezuela oil deal, holding some proceeds in Qatar. And this headline was actually interesting this morning as well, because Qatar is where the United States, or Trump said this morning, people should leave Qatar, especially United States citizens, given that they might be ready to prepare strikes against Iran. So I just think the diversity, I mean, Greenland has a lot of rare earth minerals, like a lot. And I think that's another reason why Trump is really interested in that region. You had Critical CRML, that company has a lot of ties to Greenland. So I think that's why those are catching a bid. I don't know if there's anything else that's super fundamental to get MP to pump the way it's pumping. This is something we saw back in October, and then this one got hit by 30% towards the end of November. But I mean, if there is a different reason, then we can see what that different reason might be. MP could possibly get contracts in Venezuela. Yeah, I mean, other countries offering different resources, especially rare earth minerals, obviously oil right now. That is also part of the reason why you're seeing that. Oh, Meta just putting out earnings January 28th. Okay. Meta earnings January 28th. There you go. That's coming up. That's 2 weeks away. That is official right here on the Meta website, January 28th. Let me see what other companies are in January 28th. Meta. Let's take a look at these names. January 28th. So I have Meta. Oh, Tesla, Microsoft, Meta. Wow. I believe all three of those report that day. Then you have IBM, you have Southwest, you have Waste Management, you have ServiceNow, you have ASML in the morning. Wow, that's going to be a big day. Yeah, Palantir is 2-2, February 2nd. January 28th is my birthday too. All right. Well, on your birthday, we are going to have a lot of earnings to discuss. And the thing is, now these earnings really matter because the large caps have not made a move. I doubt any of the large caps are going to make a massive move over the next 2 weeks, which means the earnings are going to really determine if these large caps continue to make a broader move or not. Here's an update on oil prices as well. Crude prices are slightly down based on some of the stuff that Trump has said.
Subsumed into the United States. They said a disagreement remains. We saw the Denmark team say that it's just hard to function in this environment with these constant threats. But they did say that talks are going to continue. They say they're going to put together a high-level working group, no detail on what that is, to continue conversations, maybe some kind of diplomatic off-ramp in that high-level working group there. We'll wait and see. We still haven't gotten any readout on this meeting from the U.S. side, so all we have to go on right now is what the Danish and Greenland side have been saying this afternoon. Meanwhile, we saw the president moving oil markets in the Oval Office, talking to reporters a short time ago. He initially indicated that there was some sort of de-escalatory message, and then later in that same Oval Office session, Brian, he provided a little bit more detail on exactly what information he was getting from Iran that made him confident that the killing there had stopped or would be stopping. Here's what he said.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There was supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out. But we've been told on good authority, and I hope it's true.
So you saw the president there, Brian, referring to very important sources on the other side. Not clear there to me necessarily whether he's talking about direct communications between Washington and Tehran or whether that's U.S. intelligence gathering information from sources in Tehran. Nonetheless, president seemed pretty confident there that the killing had stopped, and that sent that de-escalatory signal that the market seemed to like, and it moved the oil market.
Yeah, but that doesn't indicate or give us an indication, I should say, Eamon, of what the president's thinking may be about Iran longer term. We're talking about a short-term thing, and what is the biggest revolt or uprising, protest, whatever word you want to use, against the Ayatollah since 2009 or 1979 with the Shah.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, I think this is a temporary signal, but it's sent, at least for this afternoon, maybe. People were wiping the sweat off their brows in terms of whether there might be U.S. military action in Iran. The long-term resolution to this crisis clearly, is still out there, and we just don't know where it's going to land for now. But I think markets just reacting to that signal from the president saying, the killing has stopped, and that was his red line in Iran. He was warning the regime there: if you kill these protesters, if there's a mass hanging, the U.S. is going to respond in Iran. That we seem to be backing away from that, but again, it's all for the moment.
And also seemingly indicating there has been indeed a lot of killing over the last week or so, killing of likely civilians. Eamon Javers, thank you very much.
And again, this is why Trump is looking at the possibility of military operations a lot more seriously. We got another headline right here. The administration said it may impose tariffs, minimum import prices, or other trade restrictions with critical minerals if negotiations fail or do not produce results within 180 days. President Trump offered the Commerce Department and the U.S. Trade Representative to negotiate agreements with foreign suppliers to reduce U.S. reliance on imported processed critical minerals. That's probably why your rare earth stocks are spiking, because now they're going a little red after hours based on this. But if the domestic production of rare earth minerals, which we don't do a lot of, but there's a couple companies that do in the United States, get more importance. This is the same exact narrative that happened back in October. Then those stocks are going to catch a bid. It makes sense why CRML was up today. The Van Eck Rare Earth ETF REMX, that was probably up 2%, 5% today, 2.3%, 91.32. Yeah, I mean, if Trump is saying we need to stop being so dependent on importing rare earths, your domestic ones like MP that have gotten investments from Apple and the DoD, they're going to get some love. By the way, it looks like Brian Armstrong's not a fan of this crypto bill. Take a look at this tweet he just posted 15 minutes ago. After reviewing the Senate banking draft text over the last 48 hours, which I think is the Clarity Act, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is basically the concept of the Clarity Act. Coinbase, unfortunately, cannot support the bill as written. There are too many issues, including a de facto ban on tokenized equities, DeFi prohibitions, erosion of the CFTC's authority, which, by the way, the CFTC is the only reason prediction markets even exist. So if they erode the CFTC underneath the SEC, then that prediction markets are done at that point. Draft amendments that would kill rewards on stablecoins. That's not good for Ethereum. Allowing banks to ban their competition. Yeah, okay, so this is for the Clarity Act. We appreciate all the hard work by members of the Senate to reach a bipartisan outcome, but this version would be materially worse than the current status quo. We'd rather have no bill than a bad bill. Wow. I'm surprised Bitcoin and ETH aren't down on this tweet. I mean, this is the head of one of the biggest crypto companies in the world saying this legislation is bad. We'll keep fighting for all Americans and economic freedom. Crypto needs to be treated on a level playing field in the rest of financial services so we can build this industry in a safe and trusted way in America. I would sacrifice prediction markets for Ethereum. I probably would as well. I mean, Ethereum is way too big of an asset to care that deeply about prediction markets for. But that is interesting. That is surprising. I mean, if Brian doesn't like it, Vlad's not going to like it. If Vlad and Brian don't like it, I doubt Larry is going to like it, Larry Fink. If Larry Fink doesn't like it, Saylor's not going to like it. I mean, it's not like these guys are going to have different perspectives on this. Huh. I am very surprised that Bitcoin and crypto is not getting hit from here. All right. I mean, if you don't have the support of the crypto ecosystem, this thing's not getting passed. This thing is probably not getting passed. 97,593. At least that's what we have on Bitcoin. Bob says, I have Verizon as a provider. My stream keeps glitching. Yeah, you and a lot of other people across the country. Verizon's messing up a ton. I mean, you need to realize crypto doesn't want to be regulated. Of course, it's bullish. I disagree. From everything I've heard from the crypto CEOs, they want common sense regulations. They don't want a laissez-faire anarchy when it comes to crypto. And this is the administration you're going to get to work with you to create real legislation. If the Democrats win in 2028, it's definitely not happening. And if you don't have someone as pro-crypto as Trump on the Republican side, it's not happening. I think they know legislation would actually materially allow more inflows, capital, resources, logistics, infrastructure, et cetera, to come into the crypto space. Also, how long is crypto not going to be regulated? I mean, like, we're going to go 40, 50 years without real regulations. Like, in order to institutionalize this, I mean, you got the regulations on the ETFs that allowed hundreds of billions of dollars to finally get into Bitcoin. So I think they want it. I think they just want it to be on their terms. And I don't know if they're going to get it on their terms. Duolingo, how's that doing? Wow, that was down another 5% today. All right, let's pull up the stock draft. I'm afraid to look at this shit. Matt's got to be up like 70%. I think I'm probably down. Actually, no, this is not too bad. Matt's definitely beating everybody. I'm at 26%. Matt's at 51. He's wiping the floor. Tanner's at 19. Steve's at 3. Steve's up almost 2x on Micron, but he's still up 3%. That's wild. And then Chris is at 9. Chris is at 9. Bro likes Duo but hates Adobe. Again, I don't like Duo. I just picked it because someone kept spamming it. I'm not going to say their name because they're a good friend. They might be watching right now. But they were spamming it that day on the stock draft, and I was like, screw it, let's pick Duo. But I don't own this. I don't own Adobe. I mean, at the end of the day, their narratives are kind of hit. But obviously, this one's messing up the portfolio. So we're down 60% on that. Tanner, his biggest loser right now is TTD. We all have one big loser. Matt's biggest loser, though, is only down 12%. Mine's is 60. Steve's is 50 with MSTR. That could come back pretty easily, though. And then Chris's is ELF, which could have changed today with what the administration said. So that's what you have on the stock draft. Yes, Chris is still in Meta, guys. Chris is still in Meta. He is not selling out of Meta. I am not selling out of Grab. Again, when these stocks go red, if the fundamental thesis changes, then I will say if I sell out of it or if I don't. I have no need to be in a name that, like I said that with Hims. When like my sentiment on Hims changed, I was like, all right, I'm out. That's not how I feel about Grab. Realistically, nothing has changed here outside of the price, which sucks. I get it, but there's not much I can do here. So for anyone looking for me to do it, there's like literally nothing I can do. All I can do is hold on to my shares and give it time. And sometimes that stuff happens. But if you want me to cut my shares so that, you feel good enough to cut your shares, it's like, well, then I have a lot of money that I have to figure out what to do with. And I'd rather have it in Grab right now. That's just how I feel. People can disagree, but that's okay. And I don't think Chris is cutting Meta because Meta fell from 670 to 620. Like, I don't think he got into this name for it to be a 1 month trade. I mean, he got into it in December, So a lot of these things take time to play out. It's 14 days into the year. And I know there's a lot of high flyers that, that like Micron and SanDisk and all this stuff, but I mean, I don't think that means you go away from your thesis just because there's other high flyers. There's a lot of shiny objects. Some of those are legit shiny objects. Some of those deserve to be objects that are shiny, but that doesn't mean you cut bait immediately. Now, I do want Meta below 600, but I don't know if we're actually going to get there. What do we see here? I'm looking at a couple other headlines. Again, that Coinbase tweet, that was kind of crazy. Did not expect Brian Armstrong to be around it. Someone in a stock shouldn't be the reason you're in it. Yeah, and look, unfortunately, that's how social media is, right? Like, I've got into plenty of stocks because of other people, but I also, you have to be your own person at the end of the day and make your own decisions. If my thesis changes, I will let people know. It hasn't. Nothing has changed other than the price going down. Same thing with BMNR. The thesis on BMNR hasn't changed either. The thesis on BMNR is solid. It's just crypto got nuked with the glitch or the deleveraging or whatever you want to call it. And so that's what messed up the price and the price action, but that didn't really change any part of the fundamental story of Ethereum, which, who knows, maybe is making a bit of a comeback here. Are you going to Las Vegas for the event tomorrow? I am not. Just came back from Las Vegas last week. That's enough Vegas for at least a month before going back. SMR, was that green on the day? Yeah, that was up 3%. Then Oklo, that was down 1%. TJ says, you're not wrong about stocks, you're wrong about the timing. It happens. We have a whole held it back. Yeah, and I mean, look, like if you're not holding a bag is part of investing in every way I think a long-term investor can think of it. And I think people have to, really remember, like, I love Stock Talk, but when he says he doesn't hold a bag, it's because he's actively managing a portfolio of many, many millions of dollars, and he's actively trading in that portfolio. So he had Zeta calls. I think he said this when he was on the stream. I think he had $20 strike for March. He would have been deep in the money when Zeta was at 24 a couple days ago. But when Zeta went to 18, this is back in late December. This is actually when I wrote my deep dive on it. He sold it because he was down 60 grand on the calls, and he was like, I don't want to deal with this negative 4% in the portfolio, and I'm out. If he had held, he would be up, but that's just not his philosophy. That's not how most people invest, right? Everyone has different styles of investing. Most people pick a name, they have a fundamental thesis, and they're there, thick or thin, until something changes. For him, the Zeta thesis didn't change when he sold those calls. And if he had waited a couple of weeks, they would have been up a lot, but that's just not his style. His thesis changed because the price action went against him, and that's how he invests. So if you got into a Tesla, a while ago, and you DCA'd all the way over the past couple of years to ride it back up to the 400s, your thesis probably only got better and better, but obviously the price action Tesla was basically dead money for the past 4 years until it stopped becoming dead money. I mean, Tesla's still below. It topped at 441 October of 2021. It's at 439 right now. I know it got above it, but like literally today, it is still lower than where it was October of 2021. So you either have a thesis or you don't on some of these names. What do you think about Meta being down 8% year to date? We've talked about it in depth. The street is not happy with how Zucks is allocating CapEx spend. And that's okay. I think we give Zucks a quarter or at least an earnings call to explain this shit to us, which is why yesterday I wanted to buy at 630, but after 3 pretty bullish headlines and the stock was going down, it just felt kind of obvious to wait a little bit. Maybe this is where it bottoms, but right now, all of large caps are out of theme. Meta is the only company that doesn't have a very explicit, clear ROI on their CapEx spend. And I think you're going to need Zucks to clean this stuff up. White House says Trump may impose broader tariffs on imports of semiconductors and derivative products in the near future. Okay, that is a bit confusing given the semiconductor tariffs, as per 2 weeks ago, were delayed by the administration. But I guess they are thinking of something different now. See, and headlines like that completely contradict what was said 2 weeks ago, that also shakes up the market, especially things like NVIDIA. But again, is Meta a bad company? Are they no, of course not. They're not doing anything horrible or doing anything right. It's just the price is not following the expectations of what. Same thing with NVIDIA. NVIDIA's dead money all year. Is this a bad company? Is this something you don't hold on to? Maybe if you don't see the alpha in NVIDIA because it's just too big of a market cap, that's a totally fine thesis to sell it. But that's not necessarily indicative of the price action. Same thing with Grab. It's all the results, earnings are going in the right direction. Price action is dead money. It's annoying, yes, but it can't be the nail in the coffin unless the price action is your style of investing, which is okay. But if price action was the style of investing, at least for myself, which maybe in the future it is, if I manage some hedge fund one day and I only have to care about price action. But as of now, if price action was my thesis, I would have never stayed in Robinhood and Palantir, ever. Because those two stocks definitely tested price action, at least sentiment on price action. And so, I mean, you just got to be honest with yourself about it. Doesn't Steve have Meta at 900 end of the year? Yeah, Steve has always been pretty freaking bullish on Meta. Where's Bitcoin? Are we still at 97? Wow, we're at 97.7, dude. Even after the Brian Armstrong tweet, we're going up. We're going up. The president also imposed a 25% tariff on certain advanced computing chips, such as the NVIDIA H200 and AMD MI325X. That we looked at a couple of minutes ago. Beijing has told Chinese firms to stop using CrowdStrike. Wow. CrowdStrike not moving after hours on that. But China, I mean, it makes sense, right? China probably doesn't want their companies using American cybersecurity. I don't even know CrowdStrike sells into China. It makes sense given how big of a company they are. But Amit, how can you call NVIDIA a dud for the year? The stock price is up 35% over the last year to date. Over the last year, it's up 35%. Year to date, aka 2026, it is a dud. I mean, it's down 3%, which is not anything negative about NVIDIA. It's just, again, if we're talking price action here, then that's why price action is red. But this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning of 2026, also what I wrote about last night in the article, which is that, look, Robinhood, Palantir, NVIDIA, these are not the same companies that they were when Palantir was 70 or when Robinhood was 20 or when NVIDIA was 115. These companies are different companies. One thing that's different about all of them is their valuations. And so when NVIDIA is trading at a $4.5 trillion market cap, and Robinhood and Palantir are trading at Palantir, 600 times earnings, Robinhood at 30 or 60 price to sales. These are not the same names that they were last year. So expecting the same growth out of them, it's a bit unreasonable. Now, could it happen? Sure. And could it be justified? Absolutely. If these companies continue to execute, especially if you're holding them for the next 10 years, right? Over that time, they will CAGR. But it also doesn't mean that the price action has to be conducive to what you think. Which means, again, it goes back to that stock picking mentality. Memory super cycle means Micron and SanDisk were an amazing place to start off the year. You were either in them or you weren't. Now, you can make a decision on chasing them right here. I really don't want to. I just want to take less risk this year when it comes to getting into these types of high movers. But those were the ones that have moved so far. White House says U.S. chips tariffs will not apply to chips imported for U.S. technology supply. Okay, so that's them hedging their argument around semiconductor tariffs, which is good. For microcaps like OSS, why are there not long option chains? There's not a lot of volume. There's not a lot of open interest either. I mean, the option chains are set by the market makers, so you need to have a thriving market of buyers and sellers of calls and puts for the option chain to be very liquid. Let's actually look at the top 20 options traded today, 20 stocks traded today. Wow. A freaking copper miner made it into the top 4. Freeport, FCX, IBIT, Tesla, NVIDIA. So Bitcoin, Tesla, NVIDIA at the top 3. Then you had MSTR to make the top 5. So 2 of the top 5 were crypto related. Then you had good old Intel, Apple, Meta, Netflix, AMD, Palantir, Microsoft, Amazon, Bank of America, Oracle, Broadcom, BM&R. Hasn't made the top 20 for a while. Rivian made it somehow here. 0.72 puts to call ratio, though, so a ton of puts were bought. Google, and then Marathon. Why is Marathon there? I mean, they do own a lot of Bitcoin. I think they own like 50,000 Bitcoin. But those are your top 20. Okay, so these are your names. Let's see what other different headlines we have right here. Again, the Crypto Clarity Act not necessarily going in favor. You have a senator talking about Senator Mullen. Let's pull this up. Let's see what senators are thinking about what's going on in Iran. We already know what Trump's comments are. Let's pull this up right here.
Strikes. Well, I would support removing the regime that's killing their own people. Reports are coming out right now that the number could be 12,000 to 20,000.
Okay, so you're in favor of taking out the Iranian regime?
I am at this point. They're murdering their citizens. Now, I want to just use a factual number that is in everybody's mind. If that number is true, it's 12,000 to 20,000. Let's just use the 12,000 people that they're saying that's already been killed that we know of. That's 4 times the amount of people that was killed on 9/11. And that's happening at this murderous regime. And what we want to do is give the Iranian people an opportunity to get their country back.
Yeah, we don't even know the full scale of it, obviously. One question that has been raised, though, is the president said, if they kill protesters, I will get involved.
Right.
He said the United States will come to their rescue. We saw a video last night of people in body bags. It's clear that they have killed protesters. Do you worry that he risks, if he doesn't respond, a red line moment like what Obama had with Syria?
No, well, as we know, the president doesn't bluff. He moves on his own time. Everything that he has said, he's able to do. And I believe these will be very coordinated, direct strikes. Remember, our military is always in a position to give the president options. We knew this was a possibility, even though we're not into regime change. We're not. This isn't the Arab Spring like happened underneath Secretary Clinton. But this is the people of Iran standing up to a murderous regime. And if that leadership is going to kill their own people, the president said, we'll come to your rescue.
But you just said you are for regime change here.
No, I said I'm for the strikes. I didn't say.
You said before that you're for taking out the regime.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're the ones murdering their own people. That's different than regime change. The regime change is up to the Iranian people. We're not going actively to remove the regime. We're going after the people that are killing their own people, and that happens to be the regime.
But just to be clear, you support taking out the supreme leader.
If he's the one that's calling these airstrikes or the killings of his own people, then absolutely.
Okay, but that would be regime change.
At that point, the Iranian people have spoke. They want a regime change. It's obviously they want regime change. You see them. The president has warned them.
All right, so let's do a poll in the chat and see what people are thinking. Very simple question. Do you want the U.S. to get involved in Iran militarily? This is sounding awfully familiar to 2003 when pundits were saying, well, the people want a regime change in Iraq, and it led to, basically military intervention and a very costly and long 2 decades of being stuck there. And it always starts off with a supreme leader hurting their own people, and then the United States talks about freedom, even though the United States has many times ulterior motives. Trump kind of critiqued all of this back when 2015 when he was running for president, and now he's leaning into it a bit more. 61% of you say no, 39% of you say yes. Yeah, see, this is something where, see, here's the other thing. Like, we got a midterm coming up, and outside of affordability being kind of the core topic that people care about, is the American public going to support essentially a war? I mean, it may not become a full-on war, but it will be perceived as a war with Iran. I don't know if the American people want that to happen, as gruesome as what the regime may be doing is. Or is that something that's going to unify people to come together, and that's actually a positive going into the midterms for the Republicans? Like, I lean towards people being against it more than for it. I feel like that would be the general sentiment, but these are the questions I think the Trump administration is going to have to weigh. And then obviously, how are the markets going to react to that? Especially if it further involves more oil prices. Also, the money for this, I mean, we're just going to have to print more money I think this is another reason gold and silver are pumping. I mean, Trump wants $500 billion inside of the defense budget, extra from the trillion. If Congress approves that, we're going to have to print $500 billion. It's not coming out of nowhere. Which obviously means you might have more of an inflation effect. War also lowers unemployment. Inflation would be up. Yeah, dude, I don't know if the American people want to deal with something like this. Now, again, the stuff coming out of Iran is obviously gruesome and very brutal, but a lot of this stuff is always gruesome and brutal. The question is, do we intervene, a sovereign nation? And given the historical precedent of that happening, it usually hasn't worked out. Here's a China headline with their ability to adapt outside of NVIDIA. Let's take a look at this. This also could have been part of the reason why NVIDIA was down today.
Frontier AI needs American silicon and makes NVIDIA's China comeback look more temporary. So GPU is backed by Alibaba and Tencent, and it just went public in Hong Kong last week. Shares are up 85% since then. By publicly crediting Huawei's Ascend chips, they're signaling that domestic hardware can finally do the heavy lifting. To be sure, Jensen Huang, he will still sell chips in China. Performance is performance, as you and Eunice were talking about. But now NVIDIA looks more like a bridge for the Chinese to buy time for their own domestic chip makers. So NVIDIA and other American advanced chips, nice to have for sure, but less and less a need to have. So China's strategy is volume. Insiders tell me that the U.S. strategy needs to be efficiency. NVIDIA remains the luxury brand for the West. And for private markets, anyone basically that can afford those chips and get them. Huawei and friends, they become the utility provider for countries and companies that just need good enough. What Aaron Jin, founder of HydroHost, that's an AI data center services and management startup, he calls a Costco or wholesale strategy. The idea is that you go to Costco for the flat screen that's 1 or 2 generations old. It's not the best, but it's cheap and it's available in bulk. So if you need to light up a wall, you get 100 of them and you swap out the ones that break. That strategy, this brute force strategy, it makes up for NVIDIA's speed and efficiency. And that's the route the Chinese are going until they catch up.
I wish we could, use them and compare, right? Because if it's true that it's good enough, then the whole AI trade could be called into question, much like we saw with DeepSeek last year.
Yes.
But if it's okay in some instances, but you still want the latest, I mean, look at how Gemini has been able to rise, right? It does that by being better than ChatGPT. And so I'd love to know where Shipu falls in that discussion.
I mean, the reason Gemini is able to do that too, don't forget that vertical stack advantage, right? It's TPUs. Its model was entirely trained, Gemini 3 trained on TPUs and being served on those TPUs. So where does GPU stand? I mean, no, it's not anywhere. It's as a model, it's good for an open source model, but no, it does not compete with like the best versions of Gemini and ChatGPT. But again, it's this idea of being good enough. If you're, let's say, like a company that is not using AI to code the most advanced applications, you're a marketing firm that just needs an AI that is really good on reasoning and creating images, which is what GPU's latest does, then maybe that's good enough. And you're going to pay less and it's going to be open source. So you can host it on your own servers.
Now, again, we've been hearing the same critique of NVIDIA versus the open source models from China. And I think it's a fair critique. The problem is every time we hear something like this, as I'll bring up the heat map for today, NVIDIA just beats and raises again. And it's one of those things where it's like, all right, either the demand is larger than everyone's expected and the industry is bigger than everyone's expected, which is what Lisa Su and Jensen are trying to claim, or these Chinese open source models don't necessarily compete with the level of GPUs that the rest of the world still continues to buy from NVIDIA. And so I think the quarter that NVIDIA stops beating and raising, we've got an issue. This was the heat map for the day. Obviously, you can see tech was red, healthcare, industrials, real estate was up. But I mean, for the foreseeable future, I think they're going to continue beating. I mean, they promised more. By the way, at that Vegas conference, they didn't just say 500 billion in revenue that Jensen confirmed to GTC. They said more than 500 billion. They said now we are increasing. They didn't give it a specific number, but they said we are likely increasing that 500 billion number, and that still is excluding OpenAI. But they are including potentially some China revenue. So, having said that, at the same time, I know it's only 14 days into the year, but for those that are so sensitive to the price action of something like an NVIDIA, there are plenty of other names that can probably double. I mean, I would say there's like thousands of names that can double before an NVIDIA doubles, because for an NVIDIA to double, it has to go to 8 trillion. And, this is something I've been saying since November. I was like, I don't see NVIDIA just going to $300 based on purely earnings growth, even though one could argue that's what it deserves to be at, because the macro is still a thing. As much as people don't care about the macro, like the macro does matter, and like the ability for a company to generate that much more money coming into its market cap, it also needs a conducive map. You can't have a recession, for example, for that to be the case, even if NVIDIA's demand doesn't slow down during a recession. Yeah, the alpha is in higher, innovative, smaller market caps. I mean, Amcor, which is significantly smaller market cap, 12 billion versus 4.5 trillion. That's up 20% year to date. NVIDIA's down 3%. Why? Because there's more alpha in the ability for that stock, the literal math of that stock, to move higher, along with the fundamental thesis associated with it, but it's also not a $1 trillion company. And that in and of itself could be, quite frankly, we'll see when the super investor 13Fs come out, which we should be getting to probably towards the end of January. We'll see if some of these guys just ended up taking risk off the table with the large caps. Now, I doubt it, because it's really hard for a Bill Ackman to say, all right, I'm getting out of my Google. Like, that tends to not happen. Because, he has a lot of investors that he needs to report to, and he needs to justify what he's in, and Google's are really easy to justify. But you could imagine that a bunch of them said, maybe it's time to take a rotation. We did get one of these already, Stephen Romick. He manages 7.1 billion. Again, these should be out, I think, in the next couple of weeks. Last time we got these were in November, so we are due. Yeah, it's been more than 45 days since then. This guy manages 7.1 billion. This came out actually this morning, January 14th. Speaking of selling Google, sold 21% of his Google, 7% of his Citi, actually another 14% of the other Google. I never heard of this guy. I'm gonna look him up. Stephen Romick. He bought AZEBR. I don't know what that is. He added 19% to Fortune Brands. He bought Liberty Broadband. He bought Magnum Ice Cream. He bought Nav. He bought Thermo Fisher. They had a deal with NVIDIA recently. He added to CarMax. He bought Merck. He bought IMDZ. He bought HRSEF. And then he bought another pharmaceutical name. Who is this guy? 7 billion. There's so many people that manage money that like none of us know about. Okay, this is the guy. This is the dude. And there you go. 13 Fs are due mid-February. Okay, cool. So in about a month, we should get more of this stuff. He kept his Uber, 602,000 shares, kept his Kinder Morgan. Google and Meta were the big tech names, and he trimmed both of those. Meta, a little bit less of a trim because it probably fell too much in Q4, but Google, a much heavier trim. Do we have another one of these? Oh, actually, we got two more. This was updated last week. And then January 7th. Let's take a look at these two. Greenhaven Associates, they manage 6.1 billion. Are these guys tech guys? I don't think they're tech guys. No, not tech. They bought Schlumberger. They added to Lennar. Oh, they're big into the home builders. Pulte, DR Horton, they sold off 34% of their General Motors. General Motors had a great year last year. Okay, so these guys aren't tech. Then the other one was Hillman Value Fund. This doesn't look like tech either. They managed 94 million. They sold a lot of ASML, sold Taiwan Semi, sold Warner Brothers, sold Bristol Myers Squibb. They sold their Estee Lauder. They sold Kraft Heinz, sold United Health, sold Verizon. Yeah, this is more of a value investing fund. Sold Salesforce, sold. Oh, by the way, I think the reason Salesforce was down was because of Claude Cowork, because apparently Salesforce's agent is a competitor with whatever Claude Cowork came out with the other day. Because I was trying to figure out why was Salesforce down 7%. It likely was because of Claude. I mean, Claude wrecked a ton of startups and a bunch of public companies yesterday. Salesforce fell another 0.5% today. There you go. I mean, again, stock pickers market, and the alpha might not be in the large caps right now. But it's easy to buy the large caps. You don't have to do a ton of research. It's like Meta, it's Amazon. Like it does not require advanced thinking to buy NVIDIA, Meta, Amazon, Tesla. It's like, okay. But that also means the alpha, now in 2023, it did take a lot of advanced thinking to buy the Mag 7 because they weren't really the Mag 7 yet. They were becoming the companies that, and Meta had just rebounded off $88. So I think there's a different world. Alpha comes from the deep work. That is correct. And that's also something that I talked about last year. It's like something that I'm really trying to get more interested in, which is deeper research on unknown names. And it's not easy. It's really not freaking easy. Obviously, Palantir and Hood kind of, the thing about Palantir and Hood, and the reason why I've been so obsessed with them over the past couple of years is because not only was the research accurate, but the research led to, from the lows, a 20x on both of them. And so, like when the stocks continue moving higher and higher and higher, I mean, the coverage continues to be on the names that are moving higher and higher and higher, right? It wasn't like a one night stand with them. It's like it goes from 6 to 12. It's like, okay, 12 to 20. It's like, hold on. 20 to 30. It's like, hold on. 30 to 40. And like both of those names went from 6 to 150 at one point. Palantir now at 180. And so that's why they consumed the majority of my mind share over the past couple of years. But am I naive enough to think they're going to 20x from here in the same time frame? No, like that's just not going to happen. Maybe over the next decades. And so that requires putting yourself back at the drawing board and really thinking hard and doing the deep research. And by the way, both those companies, Palantir was 15 billion at $6, Robinhood was 8 billion at $6. But literally both of those companies were small caps. Palantir, I guess you could say, was a mid cap. And so when we're talking about why is Meta down 8%, well, Meta's worth freaking 1.5 trillion. Like, it's not the same type of opportunity that it was, or that any of these stocks were a couple years ago. Mitt never did a one-night stand with Palantir. Yes, exactly. Dude, why are the cops always outside? Like, I don't live in New York. Why are they here? You guys can hear that, right? Like, what do they want from me every day, dude? The energy gets out in this building. The cops are always there. Like, goodness. Because you are a criminal? Cops are upset about Grab. Oh my gosh. Dude, I was actually driving. Oh, by the way, I dude, so I drove into the city today. I had to do something, and I ended up meeting our friend Steve. If you follow me on IG, you would have seen this picture. He's always like, why are you taking a picture of me? I was like, bro, people want to know. Look at him. Look at that. Nice little slice of pizza. But I did FSD in the city, and it was really good. It made 2 mistakes. And I don't even think they were really mistakes. I just got a little jittery about it. But this was the first time 14.2 in the city. It was pretty freaking, like, it was not bad. It was really not bad. Like, at one point, I was just like, I forgot I was driving. I was like, and I'm in the city, and there's all these things happening. I was like, this was pretty freaking good. There's the Instagram in the chat. You can follow it. But New York was so noisy too, dude. It was so freaking. We tried to have a conversation. There's always another piece of noise happening there. But yeah, FSD is getting really good. Like really freaking good. It's ice. Okay, that's not funny. It's a little funny, but that's not funny. The grab joke is funnier, but still. The point is, research is hard. Research takes time. Obviously, the third name that I picked, I felt I put a lot of research into. The stock is not cooperating with me when it comes to grab. And that doesn't mean I give up on the name, but that also means you have to broaden the research you're doing. I mean, every single person is not going to have a name do what they want to do immediately. And if you do, it's probably a micro cap that you're pumping to the moon. And that's how you get, like, usually names take time to develop, or they need a massive catalyst, or they need earnings growth. This is why the whole concept of long-term investing, you know, it's been a year since we were talking about grab, which is like a year is like nothing in the investing world. It's like that Interstellar scene, right? Where like there's a massive time difference. Like a year is nothing. You got to talk about a minimum of 2-3 years when you have a thesis on a name, and you've got to be willing to sit with it if you really believe in it. Getting addicted to the quick win. Even Rocket Lab took 3 years for the OGs that were in it. If you got in right before it took off, congratulations. Like if you got into Palantir right in May of 2023, congrats. But like usually if you're the one doing the research, that doesn't happen. And that takes some time. But if you take a look at this chart right here, this was not a fun name to be in from 2021 to October of 2024. I mean, like this was 3 full years of waiting before you got your move. But if it's a generational company, then, you know, those moves do matter. Are you still holding your calls? Yes, I'm still holding my calls. I want to wait until Q1 and see guidance before I make a decision on that. Are there explosions in Tehran? Are those the headlines? Yes, Tess, I will be showing you FSD. Tess will be at the New York meetup. I'll be picking her up from the airport. She'll be seeing, there's still so many people that haven't ever experienced FSD. So you get to see how good FSD is in Jersey. Explosions in Tehran. What time is it right now in Tehran? Initial reports of possible explosions in the Iranian capital of Tehran. It's like 3 a.m. there, right? Time in Iran. 1:30. 1:30. All right. This will be a story that we got to see. The Iranian foreign minister did a video interview on Fox. Let's pull that up. Seems like he's urging more for diplomacy here. Do you think we'll have a correction this year? I have no idea. Every analyst has said, yes, we will have some 20% correction. I think 20% is steep. That would be 570 on the S&P. I want to say we don't get that. I also wonder what's the catalyst to make that happen. Like, I feel like in this day and age, like corrections are short and quick versus like these long drawn out things. Maybe it's a short, quick 20%, but then again, that was Liberation Day. I don't know if we have a repeat of that. So my gut says no, we're not going to have a 20%, maybe like 5 to 10%, of course, but 20% would be pretty massive if we end up seeing that.
If you have a message for President Trump, who obviously is and has talked about and is considering some kind of action to help the protesters on the ground, if you have a message for him, what is the message?
My message is do not repeat the same mistake that you did in June. You know, if you try a failed experience, you will get the same result. You know, in June, you destroyed the facilities, the machines, but the technology cannot be bombed, and the determination also cannot be bombed. Now, Iran proved to be ready for negotiation, for diplomacy. We have proved that in the past 20 years, in 2015, in 2025, every time. But it was the US who always escaped diplomacy, who cut the diplomacy and opted for war. My message is, between war and diplomacy is a better way, although we don't have any positive experience from the United States, but still diplomacy is much better than war.
Okay, so obviously the Iranian foreign minister doesn't want a military, I mean, like, why would he want military action? Rocket Lab still 91.50 after hours. But it is going to be up to Trump if this ends up playing out. 97.5 still on Bitcoin. We have a correction every year. Okay, so we have a 10% correction every year. We've had a 10% correction every year since 1950. But again, people like Tom Lee are calling for 20%. 20% to me is a little. That's like last time we had a 20% correction outside of Liberation Day was 2022, right? 19.7% down. I just think, like, what's 20% from 690? We would be at 550 on the S&P, bro. Do we think the earnings growth is that? Like, to get there, you need something cataclysmic. Liberation Day was cataclysmic. I don't think we're having a recession. I mean, to my understanding, I don't think AI is dead. I think NVIDIA is going to be okay. Like, to see that type of a retracement with the narratives that we have, something's got to break badly. I mean, if we see 20%, these growth stocks that are comprising the majority of people's portfolios are down 50 to 70%. Like that, like even if it's for a short amount of time, that will happen. It's inevitable. Robinhood's going back to 50, maybe less than that. Coinbase is going back to 70. NVIDIA is going to 100. Like it's going to be very ugly if that happens. I think it's very perma bearish to be like 20% for sure. 10%, it's like, yeah, that's inevitable. Although, outside of Liberation Day, I don't think we got a 10% correction last year. Liberation Day was the anomaly that gave us 30%. But outside of that, and the only time does anyone remember when we got 10% in 2024? Does anyone remember when we actually had, it was for a brief moment in the pre-markets, the S&P touched a level that constituted a 10% drawdown. Does anyone remember when? Because it was really quick. Is that before or after ETH hits 30,000? Yes, yen carry trade, which literally lasted for a second. By the way, JP Morgan expects 130 billion of crypto inflows in 2026. No, so they expect more than 130 billion of crypto inflows for 2026. What are the crypto inflows looking like? Let's see. Yeah, it was August. So far for the year, I'll do the math real quick on the total crypto. This is just Bitcoin, not ETH. These are on the ETFs. We are net. $660 million in the Bitcoin ETFs net for January. Just about a little bit over $500 million, which is not crazy. Today's going to be a really good day. That probably will take us closer to $1 billion. But we had 130 billion in 2025, which is what? 130 divided by 12. That's 10 billion a month. So we got to do 10x the current amount we're at per month in order to match that level, or above 10x to match that level. If we miss earnings in the Mag 7, definitely a 20% down. Yeah, that I agree. 100%. That's a great comment. If we miss earnings in the Mag 7 or the Taiwan invasion or something, like if something like that happens, but that's cataclysmic. If Google, Amazon, these guys miss earnings, like really miss earnings, which I don't see happening because their guidance last year and the growth they put up in Q3. But if that were to happen, which again would beg the question, why? Like recession, therefore less advertising on Meta, less advertising on Google. Like it would have to be something I feel more macro, but if that does happen, yeah, we're seeing 20% in. Which is crazy because like the large caps control the market's success, but the large caps also aren't benefiting because they're just so big. It's like they just can't mess up, but it's not like they necessarily are making the biggest move. If they miss some investing in NVIDIA into Beyond Meat. How is that stock doing this year? 96 cents. This thing was at $7 in November, bro. Well, it's up 14% this year, bro. It's beating NVIDIA. It's beating NVIDIA. That's crazy. That is crazy. It was 30 cents. Yeah, there you go. NVIDIA's down 4% this year. My vegan date is rich now. Oh my gosh. You know what's kind of crazy about this though? Let's say you YOLO'd like your entire portfolio 14% ago into Beyond Meat and you're up 14%. The fun thing about trading is that trading is like, it's so non-emotional. Like you don't care what it is. It just needs to go up. And then you're in and you're out. And that's it. You're done. Whereas when you become a portfolio manager, a long-term investor, it's not about just getting in and getting out. It's like you actually have to have a fundamental thesis on something. And there is a lot of liberation and freedom to the idea of just having your portfolio in cash every day. I know a couple people that do this. They go into a stock and they get out. They have a tight stop loss. And that's it. Some days they'll have losing. The more experienced ones have much less losing days than winning days. But they don't deal with the swings of the market. They don't care what Powell says. They find their little edge in whatever stock they're in, a couple cents, maybe a couple percentage points if they're on a good day, and then they're in there. It's not easy to do, obviously. It's much easier to just buy companies and hold them if they're really good. But it is definitely less emotional than actually holding on long. I'm not a Stanford alumni. I got this when I was with Arnie in Palo Alto when we visited Stanford. Although I've been to Stanford many times. I've been to that campus like 10, 15 times. So I like Stanford. Amit, I really feel like this is exhaustion from the AI trade causing rotation. However, money will flow back. I agree with you. I also think there are people genuinely just feeling that maybe the alpha is not in the large caps this year. Now, it's only 14 days into the year, right? So it's hard to just immediately gauge sentiment, but nuclear, quantum, aerospace and defense, drones, space, these are the themes, and then some of the semiconductors that have led the market this year. It's not tech, it's not AI, and it's not crypto until today. And again, I was writing about this in the article last night. I don't know if that's all driven by retail. It's hard to imagine that much of a return from those names is purely retail driven. Like it feels like there has to be big money that's associated with this, and maybe they're going to get out soon. But I doubt retail woke up on January 1st and was like, all right, we're going to pile into these 5 thematic sectors. Feels like there has to be bigger money coming into this. So over time, especially as we get into earnings, we're going to see. Suppose you're wrong and OpenAI is not too big to fail. What then? There's 2 perspectives on this. We've debated this so many times. If OpenAI fails, I think that's really bad. But if OpenAI fails, what if Google just wins? What if Anthropic just wins? What if a lot of these companies just overtake the momentum that OpenAI had? I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an LLM, right? You just switch. Now, the 1.4 trillion of spend, bad for Oracle, Broadcom, NVIDIA's kind of distanced themselves. Really not good for AMD if OpenAI legit fails. I don't think it's going to fail. There's too much big money involved for them to fail. They're going to have to IPO. Maybe that's going to be the absolute top of all this. But someone else just steps in and gets all the users. Which again, it's hard to imagine they completely fail, but especially because they still do have almost 1 billion users. Amit, how's your angel investing going? Have you already started investing funds? So I have like 75 pitch decks in my email that I need to take a look at. In fact, someone I met today, I can't fully explain why I met him, but Steve and I met him together. He was a 23-year-old kid, and the dude is doing on the business that he's running $100,000 a month. He's at like 70,000, and he's in the right trajectory for 100,000 in revenue. Now he has a lot of expenses. He's not profitable, but like, I want to invest in people like that. Like this is this 23-year-old kid who's just hustling in New York City, grinding. And it was super cool to meet him. So I have to go through all those pitch decks. I have a meeting with one of the Andreessen partners in a few weeks, and they're going to help me kind of understand how to navigate all the requests. But realistically, obviously it's going to be very hard to invest in all those ideas. But the goal is to better learn how to understand these ideas, because at the pre-seed level, it's just so freaking hard. So freaking hard to understand what could work, what won't work. Will you invest in my OnlyFans? You know what Florida's doing, bro? Florida, or at least one of the people running for Florida's governor, he's introducing a sin tax. And the idea is to tax the winnings, or not the winnings, it's not a lottery, but like the revenue of OnlyFans models in Florida. It's kind of wild.
I want to break some news here with you, Joel. I hadn't planned to do this, but allow me to do it, which is that as Florida governor in year 1, I will push for the first of its kind OnlyFans sin tax. If you are a so-called OnlyFans creator in Florida, you are going to pay 50% to the state on whatever you so-called earn via that online degeneracy platform. And that money will be used to fund our education system, will be used to fund the crisis pregnancy centers, will be used to fund the first of its kind mental health czar for men in particular, because men have been told for far too long that they are guilty of masculinity, that they are guilty of all of society's ills. I'm not going to stand for that slanderous lie. What I'm going to do is I am going to end this lie that toxic masculinity is responsible for all the sins and ills of society. If you're an OnlyFans model and you reside in Florida, get ready to pay 50% of your income to the state. It is called a sin tax because it is a sin, number one. But the purpose of a sin tax in economics is to disincentivize and deter a behavior. And yes, as Florida governor, I don't want young women who could otherwise be mothers, raising families, rearing children. I don't want them to be selling their bodies to sick men online. And I don't want young, impressionable men who have strayed from Christ, who have strayed from our Lord and Savior, to be told and drawn into lust and have their entire brain rewired. We will raise hundreds of millions of dollars of income on the OnlyFans sin tax. And if we don't, Joel, if we don't raise that income, you know what it'll mean? It will mean something even greater has materialized for the young women and young men of our state.
What do you guys think? 60% of you say yes. I mean, you know what the real thing about this is that I think gets people on board? You obviously have a lot of people that are more so like, no more taxes, more libertarian. It's like, hey, like you can't just tax the crap out of everybody just because they're in a profession you don't like. I think the big thing here is people are really upset that these OnlyFans chicks are making literally tens of millions of dollars a year by essentially selling pornography. And, you have teachers and bus drivers and policemen that are, doing things that we would argue are helpful for society. Now, the subjective spectrum of what is helpful for society or not is obviously a very complicated question. Is doing a YouTube stream helpful for society? One could argue, no, it's not as helpful as being a policeman. But it is something that contributes to society and offers value. So like you do have a lot of people thinking that the OnlyFans stuff offers zero value to society. It's purely rooted in, as the guy says, degeneracy. You can see the cops are pretty mad about it as well. And that's why they deserve to get taxed even harder. So, I mean, those are the perspectives that are there. Now, again, I don't know how you constitutionally justify. I guess in a state you can do. I don't think they would federally be able to do that. Like Rick's, for example, this is a company that owns adult entertainment facilities, aka strip clubs. Should they pay a higher tax because they're contributing to the degeneracy of society? They don't pay a higher tax than any other company. So, I mean, I do think that there's going to have to be a state-by-state basis on this. I don't think it would get federal, but it is an argument that potentially will get a lot of support. By the way, speaking of states doing their own stuff, when AI replaces OnlyFans creators, which it probably will inevitably, do the tech companies, like, Sam Altman has literally talked about erotica inside of ChatGPT. Is he going to have to pay this type of degeneracy tax because people are using OpenAI for that stuff? I mean, these are the broader questions with the implications we have to think about. California is losing their billionaires, folks. It is happening. So I think we talked about it on Monday, but Larry Page officially has filed to leave California with 20 different LLCs that he owns. Again, there's a billionaire tax that is being put on the docket for November to vote on. Gavin Newsom came out yesterday. Talking about Gavin Newsom, the guy who is not really on the side of the billionaires. And even he is saying he would shut down the billionaire tax, or he would try to veto it. And I think that's kind of crazy when Gavin Newsom is coming out and saying, hey, yeah, this is a horrible idea. That's when you know this tax is probably not the best idea. New York Times, Gavin Newsom vows to stop proposed billionaire tax in California. Like, this is not the guy that should be coming out and opposing this. But he is absolutely saying this is a stupid idea for the state. Peter Thiel officially filing to leave. Larry Page. The worst thing about this was when I was reading into it is, again, Silicon Valley inside of California is the home of startups and founders. A lot of these founders are sitting on a lot of liquid or illiquid paper gains, essentially, on their startup equity. This bill legit forces you to sell and pay the taxes on stock that you might not have any sellers for because it's in a startup. And now you have a lot of VCs coming out saying that if you are raising a Series B, which is not as late as like a Series D, but it's also not as early as a pre-seed, you've got to raise it in a different state, because if you're raising it in California, which on average the valuations tend to be like 100 to 400 million on Series B, you're going to pay a lot of taxes on stock that you can't even sell. So it is kind of crazy, the divergence between states, and I think the takeaway is the extremity in the policies. Florida thinking of taxing OnlyFans models, California thinking of taxing billionaires. Like, so many different policies from so many different perspectives, and in November we're going to see which ones ends up playing out. Who proposed the billionaire tax? I don't even know. It just got a lot of traction. I'm not sure who proposed the California billionaire tax, but someone did. And now you've literally got the Google co-founder leaving. So I don't know. Over the coming months, we're going to see if the implications of this play out. Chamath said it won't be on the ballot. Yeah, but I think the fact that all these people are leaving means that they feel there's a hint that it could be on the ballot. We got Iran-Iraq updates. Take a look at this. This is the live airspace. Pretty quickly, you're starting to see that empty. This is from Flight Tracker. I mean, you're getting a lot of airplanes that are getting the hell out of the way. If there's strikes and there's commercial jets that are near it, that obviously won't be a good thing. I don't know, bro. Maybe we're seeing something happen sooner than later. Let's see if we can get some more coverage on it. Let's see if there's some more coverage on it. It's exciting when Amit reads your comment. Venkat, thank you for being here. I try to read as many comments as I can, guys. It's obviously impossible to read every single one out loud. It was easier 3 years ago. There was like 40 people. But then in the morning when there's like a lot more. Again, it's crazy when it's on politics, though. Like when I was playing Elizabeth Warren in the morning, half of you guys were like, get this woman off my TV. The other half were like, wow, she's actually making some reasonable points about credit cards. It's just like such a dichotomy back and forth. And it's like, all right, you definitely cannot please everybody. I don't see any mainstream coverage on this. No Fox, no CNN. No, they're not covering Iran. They're talking about Greenland, which is also a big thing. That's how a lot of OGs got to know each other in the chat. Yeah, that's also true. As well as true. I did not buy anything today. Nope. I was actually busy the whole day, to be honest. I was gone. As soon as I left the market open, I drove to New York. And then I was there for like 4 hours before I had to come back. And then right when I came back, I started to close. So I caught up on everything pretty quickly. Would you do a podcast with Joe Rogan? Yeah, I would love to. That'd be fun. To do a podcast with Rogan. I don't know why he would have me on his show though. Like I feel like something needs to happen before we get on his show. Okay, I don't see any coverage. Yeah. I mean, we have some Greenland coverage. Actually, we have a little bit of Iran. Let's pull this up right here and see if we have anything.
Added a second dog sled. That's not going to do the trick.
President Trump also weighing military action against Iran as the Islamic regime slaughters its citizens. But earlier, Trump said he got word that the killing has stopped.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped. It's stopping. And there's no plan for executions or executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset.
I think Trump is fronting right there. Given what we're seeing with the airspace and the quotes we're getting from the White House, I think he might be playing it down, but it does feel like they are getting ready to strike. I mean, we already know the regime has murdered thousands of people. So, I mean, unless his barometer is, hey, if they stop, I won't do anything, but they have to stop right now. But they've already done it, which is why I think Trump is tweeting so aggressively around the regime. Doesn't feel like it's going to slow down. Talk about TSM. So they have earnings this morning or tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. Eastern. I don't think we're going to get anything different from TSM that we haven't seen. Revenue growth should still be well above 40%. And we've seen their month-over-month sales that have been pretty incredible, catering at like 65%. You do have a lot of put buyers on TSM. Are these put sellers? What TSM strike price is at 327? No, these are put sellers. You have a bunch of people selling puts at 330, a couple million of that for February 20th. So you have more people bullish than bearish. TSM spent $197 million at a public auction to buy 900 acres of land adjacent to its existing Arizona property. That headline came out this morning. Analysts expect TSM to generate $88 billion operating income by 2027. That's the guidance that they're looking for. Market cap is about enterprise value is 1.3 trillion. Oh, there it is. Iran issues alert, closing airspace to all flights. Yep, that is why the flights are heading out. There you go. It is official. Look at that. From that to that. All right. This is going to be something now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean that something's happening, but there is more of a reason than not that you would close off the flights. Yeah, officially, that is what they're saying. By the way, for those that want to follow Cactus on X, he is the chat's personal Bloomberg. Let me link his X right here. If you want your own Bloomberg for free, please give a follow to Mr. Cactus Jack. I'm putting his Twitter right there in the chat. You can follow him there. And yeah, he pretty much, I mean, honestly, he's better than Walter Bloomberg, to be honest. Walter Bloomberg on X is like pretty fast with stuff. I think Cactus is better. So you can follow him there. Does he have a terminal? No, he just works hard. Dude, a terminal is 25 grand a year. No one wants to spend 25,000 a year. Like that's, I mean, like some people want it, but like that's just a lot of money. And I feel like with the democratized information, you don't need to spend that much. When Cactus Terminal. I mean, he basically is my terminal. That's what I call my terminal. VVV could. I don't know. Does Triple V have I don't think he has a Bloomberg terminal. He might. I don't know if he cares that much about like the literal day-to-day news. I met someone who has a terminal, and they pulled it up in front of me, and they were like doing some really advanced like logarithmic analysis under a chart, because like the Bloomberg shit goes deep, bro. There's like a lot of shit you can do on it. I was like, damn, okay, you're a person that probably should own a terminal. That makes sense. I feel like you have to be managing a decent chunk of money, because then it's like obviously worth it. But for most retail investors, like it's X is good enough to get all the news. Have you bought any silver recently? No, I have not. I was talking to my uncle last night. He's buying calls on COPEX at $100 strike for Jan 2027. He really thinks copper is going way higher. And I was talking to him yesterday. He told me he sold silver at 65. So, but he took all that money and he put it into COPEX. He's sitting on like 200 grand of gains on COPEX calls for $60 April. They're now deep in the money. And now he's buying more Jan 2027 $100 strikes. So he's very bullish that copper will outperform. But he's out of silver, and he admitted he's ended up selling too early, but the rotation was copper. I bought so much silver from Costco at 35. Your uncle's getting rich. Dude, the funniest thing about this is October of 2024, he didn't know what a call option was. Like his investing was like so boring. It was like random Indian stocks. And you know, he's done well for himself. He has some money. And I was just learning about options too around that time, particularly around selling options. I was leveraged heavy into Hood at that time as well. But in India, you know, like we hadn't met in 5 years. And so we just got down to talking, and obviously the concept of money and investing came up. And I was like, have you heard of options? Have you heard of derivatives? He's like, no. And then I just explained it to him, and he got obsessed. Like he really put in the work after 2 weeks of me talking to him, and he just like watched every video on YouTube, ordered a ton of books on options. And then he had to pick the right asset to apply leverage to, which in this case was copper and silver for him. His portfolio, we were talking about it yesterday, his top 5 positions. Let me bring it up. We caught up last night on a bunch of stuff. He was in Hood heavy. He ended up having some calls get called away. He has, so in this order, copper, COPEX, SoFi, Hood, BMNR, and Zeta. And then he has Amazon, Meta, URA, SLVP, which I think is a silver miners fund, DBB, which is like a total fund of miners, and then Grab. He sold NVIDIA and Palantir. And he sold HIMS at 60. Honestly, the day I sold HIMS, I texted him and we both sold it. Thank goodness we got the hell out that day. But those are his main names. COPEX is the one that is doing well. For those saying Iran's getting bombed, I don't know if we have a source on that. I also don't think we would strike this early. The strike likely, if we were to strike, will happen late at night. Yeah, there's no, I mean, the airspace is closed, but I don't think we have a strike notification yet. It's 1:30 there. No, he has Grab as well. He's in Singapore, so he's known about them for a while. Yeah, it is late at night for them, but whenever Trump has done this before, I remember in 2017, he tends to do this when it's late for us, even if it's early morning for them. Even with Venezuela, like he doesn't, it's 5:30, but I don't think he wants the entire news media coverage on this at 5:30. But maybe if he is striking, then it is earlier. Also, like the strikes in 2017 in Syria, they were not consequential to the point where it led to some full-on invasion. Like it was like a very targeted thing, and that was the end of it. That could happen here again as well, unless they legit want to get rid of the Ayatollah, which that's a much more advanced mission. But it might just be a special military operation and that's it. Now, if it's more aggressive than that, then we've got a whole different story for how this would play out. Trump said he and Venezuela Rodriguez discussed oil and trade. Is Bitmine streaming the conference tomorrow? I don't know. I'll stream it. I just don't know if it's going to be live. I'm going to try to find out if it's live. We got an update on the Congress trading bill to ban congressional members from owning stocks or trading stocks. Let me pull this up. Then I'll see if I can get that update.
Welcome back to Fast Money. A GOP-backed bill,
and it's expected to get a vote on the House floor soon. Now, the bill still faces a number of hurdles, namely growing opposition from Democrats who say that the bill has a lot of loopholes. Lawmakers, they don't need to divest their assets. They can still buy commodities, futures, and diversified funds. Plus, they can still sell funds if they give 7 days public notice. And of course, they can use dividends to buy more shares of stocks, all things that Democrats do not want to see. But look, this would be the first stock trading ban to get a vote on the House floor. Lawmakers have been working on this issue for years. And that is because, in part, the levels of trading that go on. You know, Nancy Pelosi and her husband, who does a lot of stock trades, they're probably the most prominent examples of trading in Congress. But if you look at the tracker on capital trades from the past year, this is not a partisan issue. You're seeing members there of both parties that have made thousands of trades. And while insider trading is hard to prove, there are many cases like lawmakers who sold off a ton of stock before COVID-19 crashed the markets that look very suspicious and have helped really increase the number of lawmakers who support a ban and want to be able to vote on something. Melissa?
Emily, on the wall there was 4,000 trades in 1 year. Rokana, 4,000 trades in 1 year.
Does
and
he run a
will say that it wasn't
hedge
him who
fund?
made all the trades, that it's, that it's, and some of these members say, look, it's not me, it's, the person who manages my finances, or it's a spouse or a partner. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of lawmakers say, look, the perception is there and we don't truly know. There's no way to really verify exactly who did this or exactly what information that they had. And the lawmakers have just told me this doesn't look good. We can't do it anymore.
Right. But to be specific, this is just Congress and it doesn't apply to cabinet officials.
I don't think they're going to actually ban it, dude. These people are too greedy. These people want to trade. By the way, the U.S. House just passed a $2 spending package funding the state and Treasury departments, the IRS, D.C., and the federal judiciary through September 30th on Wednesday. This is good. This vote helps prevent a looming government shutdown on January 30th. Let me see what the shutdown odds are. It was at 30% last week. If that's down, at least we have less of a... It's still at 29.7. This is something we can't afford to deal with this, dude. Our GDP can't afford to deal with this shit. Cannot have a shutdown. 8,000 trades is wild, though. This is the guy that wants to tax billionaires on their unrealized gains, and he's trading 8,000 times. Like, that's kind of it's kind of aggressive. Yeah, Rokan is also on multiple Congress committees. Just 22 trades a day. There you go. I mean, that's not good. Zoe, is your birthday tomorrow? It's Zoe's birthday tomorrow? All right. Happy almost birthday to Mr. Zoe Cold. Zoe, are you a J. Cole fan? Because he announced his new album for next month. I am so excited for that. I think you are a J. Cole fan. If I remember, you were telling me. We'll be getting... Yes. All right. I love it, man. Happy almost birthday. January 15th. How did you know? I didn't know. Tess knew. Tess knows everything. She knows everything. You guys still hear the cops, right? This is getting kind of ridiculous, bro. You're a big J. Cole fan. Dude, I started listening to some of the older mixtapes over the past couple weeks. I feel like my favorite rapper is J. Cole. My favorite artist, like number one is Michael Jackson. Then number two is probably Drake. I listen to Drake more. But J. Cole, from a pure rapping, storytelling, his ability to articulate what it took for him to get to where he is, I think he's my favorite. I think he has to be my favorite. Don't shit on me for saying Drake, okay? I like Drake songs. It is what it is. But J. Cole's up there. Like, I can listen to J. Cole's discography for a year and probably not get bored. I did not have to deal with the Verizon outage. At least it wasn't in my part of New Jersey. Do you know anyone invested in Planet Labs? Is anyone invested in Planet Labs in the chat? Nothing was the same as the last best Drake album. I won't disagree with you there. I think his latest albums have been really subpar. Like, they've been full of slop, to be honest, and overcrowded. But there's still music from him that I love. Planet Labs was up 6% today. Up another 1% after hours. As long as you agree Kendrick won the beef. Dude, the Democrats used Not Like Us, or no, they used Like That on a TikTok. I forgot who the person was in it was, I think it was Trump or something, but they used the song on the other party. No, Kendrick won the beef, obviously. But there's more nuance to him winning the beef. And we don't need to go into it. But, yes, he won the beef. It is what it is. He won the beef. But there's still more to it than just him winning. But no one wants to hear about it because no one wants to hear the nuance because obviously he won. Oh, the pizza traffic is increasing. Does everyone know the pizza traffic metric? So people really follow this stuff. Near the Pentagon, if pizza places are getting more deliveries, it means that people are staying up late in Congress, in the White House, etc., in DC. And this happens every time before there's some type of attack or some type of thing that happens. Usually it's Domino's. I think that's the main one that gets the traffic. There you go. Pizza tracker is up. Will you be streaming BMNR? When is the conference, guys? Can someone tell me when's the conference? Is it in the middle of the day? Is it before the close? If it is, then yes. Tomorrow's what, Thursday? No, I have a meeting Thursday, dude. Ever since I hired Jess, I have meetings all day. She puts me in these freaking meetings. I have a legit calendar that I never looked at my calendar. Everything I did was through memory. And now I have a freaking calendar. Yeah, I have a meeting at 12. And then I have a meeting at 12:30. So, and I can't miss those meetings. I just can't. So if it's during that time, if it's at 1 to 3, I can stream it. But if it's in between that, I can't. If I'm not streaming it, Tanner will probably stream it, though. Tanner most likely will cover it. Dude, you guys rage bait Tanner so much. I went into his stream today, and every other comment, he's yelling. But not because he's mad or angry or anything. It's just that's who he becomes with some of these comments. It's kind of funny. It's actually kind of funny. Bro, you accidentally got a job? Yeah, pretty much. But even he acknowledges it. He's like, this is just how I am during the streams. This is what ends up happening. Someone was giving him shit today. Someone was like, you don't talk about hedging too much. And Tanner's like, I don't care if my stocks fall. I'm a long-term investor. So if you care that much, you can hedge, but I don't care. I'm like, yeah, he's right. He really doesn't give a shit if Nebius falls to 70, but he'll buy more. That's who he is. But people were giving him so much shit. Not people. There's 1 or 2 people that were just there. But then he started imitating what the person sounds like. It was hilarious, dude. It was actually hilarious. We like to wind him up. He is great. He's a perma-bull. I would say I'm a perma-bull too. I feel like being a perma-bull is better than being a perma-bear. And that doesn't mean you can't acknowledge bear cases. And, we talk a lot about how things could go wrong and this and that. And I think Tanner is pretty damn fair. He shows both sides to every situation when he discusses it. But to be net bearish in the time that we're living in, I really do think you're just like yelling at the crowd, waiting for something bad to happen. And that's just not the way the world is going right now. Sam Altman will be there, I think, for the Orbs synergy with BM&R. Besant, in a meeting with his Japanese counterpart, flagged the undesirability of excessive exchange rate volatility and emphasized the need for sound monetary policy formation and communication. The Japanese prime minister is trying to get rid of certain parts of parliament. I saw that headline today as well. I'm actually trying to do a lot more research around why Japan is cutting rates and printing money at the same time. It's very complicated as I've been looking into it. It's hard to kind of understand exactly why they're doing it. But the yen is appreciating massively against the dollar. So it's a great, if you're sitting on a ton of dollars and you want a vacation in Japan, I mean, right now is an amazing time. Your dollar is worth 157 of their yen. Orbs is crap. BM&R should have let that go months ago. I kind of agree, dude. I love Dan Ives, but I don't understand the Orbs thing. Maybe the biometric scanning shit is like really important. I didn't love that move. But now they're in it. They're probably going to stay in it for a while. BM&R is 12-3. Yeah, but they're not going to stream 3 hours. Okay, well, Tanner, I'm busy 12-1, but if I'm out at 1 and they're streaming starting at 1, then maybe I can stream. If not, Tanner will probably get it. Bitcoin right there. 97, losing 97.5 as that's down. I told Tanner you're expecting a baby. Yeah, today I saw in my messages, he was like, are you expecting a baby? You guys got him thinking that I'm having a baby. Who invented crypto? That's a great question. Honestly, no one knows. Like, actually, no one knows. I guess if we're talking about Bitcoin. No one knows. All right, is that it? I did. My dad. Elon Musk. Dude, that FSD subscription news today was pretty big news. I think that's a big deal. And it'll probably increase the subscribers for Tesla. Fighter jets are heard over Iraq in sign of possible U.S. military action against Iran. Oh boy. Oh boy, let's see if we can get some coverage on this. No one's talking about it. No coverage. No, we got nothing yet. Got nothing. Tanner said he had a dream. He had a blonde kid and he woke up missing. That's actually really funny. I don't think I've ever had a dream that I had a kid. I've had dreams about a lot of stuff. I don't think I've ever had a dream that I had a kid. It's obviously Jack Dorsey. I don't think that's a horrible idea. All right, I think that's it, guys. I think that's it. I mean, we're gonna have to really freaking see if this ends up resulting in something big. I mean, all the signs are there, whether it's the pizza thing, the Iran travel warning, the airspace clearing up. Trump was talking about it this morning. I mean, either it happens today or it happens soon or it's not going to happen. But it feels like it's going to happen sooner than later if it does happen. If they start bombing, are you coming back? Probably not tonight because I have another 3. I missed a freaking meeting yesterday that I had to reschedule for tonight. Like, I can't believe there's these many meetings in the day. But yeah, there's no way I'm gonna be able to come back tonight. But then again, the question is, how bad does it get? Maybe we do have to come back tonight. Futures aren't really reacting to this, though. I mean, it's the same as it was in the morning. NASDAQ was still down 1%. Yeah, I mean, the thing about all these headlines with war is like it happens, then you move on. The same thing would happen when we struck their nuclear facilities. Like it happened, and then we moved on. Like it really doesn't end up becoming a big deal. Steve and Tanner live in 2 hours. See, you can bug them to talk about this. And the thing about Steve is he hates talking about politics. So he's going to want to avoid the topic so much. Like realistically, Steve likes talking about movies, the stock market, the Mag 7, how much he hates the Fed, and earnings multiples. You ask him about, well, what happens if we strike Iran? Yeah, he's just like, he does not want to talk about that. Neither does Tanner. Oh, and Pokemon cards, yes. Which I will be going with him to a conference this week to see what that looks like. I don't know. It's going to have to get bad in 2 hours for there to be a lot of media coverage about it. Yes, and food and milk. Oh, you guys got to show him the milk thing today. This whole milk policy the administration laid out. And Costco. And how much he hates EVs. Dude, Tesla, again, the FSD was really good in New York today. He should have been in my dude. I should have like drove him around for a little bit for him to experience it. It was actually really decent. All right, I think that's it. I think that's it. Are you buying a Pokemon card? I don't know. We'll live stream a little bit of it off his phone. I'll see what's there. I kind of don't want to buy a card, but if there's a decent deal, I just don't know anything about the space. So it's like, I feel like anything I buy, I'm probably going to have a disadvantage. But we'll be there Saturday. Maybe there's a good deal. All right, cool. That is it. I'll be back on the market open tomorrow. Again, lots of crazy stuff in terms of geopolitical headlines. Was a red day, kind of. Ended up being relatively green for a bunch of different sectors. Rocket Lab just continues to be, I think, one of the best stocks this entire year. And based on the events of tonight, potentially, we'll see if this ultimately impacts the broader markets. And then crypto continuing to get some more momentum as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow for the market open. And we'll keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. See you guys tomorrow. Bye, everyone.